right, Brian, how's that looking?
It's starting to come through now. That's perfect. Brilliant.
Right, so let's get on here and play it from the start. That's still okay? Is that on the full screen now?
That's beautiful.
Great, right, so let's get going. As I say, great to see you here. Apologies for the wee glitches getting going, but let's talk about what we're here to talk about this afternoon. So, as I said, Digital Schools Award have made some changes. They actually applied these changes to their website the day after our last session in January, or we would have talked to you about them then. You probably got an email. If you'd already registered with the Digital Schools Award website, you probably got an email. Let's talk it through though. Brian and I, it's taken us a little bit of time to get our heads around it, so I just want to go through with you what the changes are. We'll take a look at the new version of the website as well, if that's a help. Then we'll get into the kind of meat and the sandwich of today's session, which is talking about what do we mean by digital learning and teaching? What does the criteria look like? Digital Schools Award have tweaked the criteria a little bit. It's nothing massive, but it is a bit of a change. We'll talk you through some resources that might help. One of the things that I spent a bit of time on last week was mapping the old criteria that we're used to working with and that you will have used if you started your application to this slightly different criteria. It maps across quite nicely. I can talk you through the chats I've had with Digital Schools Award why they've made these changes. So we've got those resources that Brian will drop into our wee space on the DigiLearn website so you can get to them. Any questions you guys might have, and then if you want to come and talk to us in more detail, a few of you have reached out to say, could I have a wee 15-minute chat? We'll talk about what the plan can be for that as well. So let's move through. Right, so what's changed? So as I say, in January, they migrated over to this new website. So on the left of the screen there, you can see the old website that you will have been familiar with, and then on the right, it's what this new website looks like. So it isn't loads different, but it's a little bit different. And what they've done is they've brought all of the different awards that it's possible to apply for into this new one portal. So I wanted to spend a bit of time talking about the main changes and just what it means. Drop into the chat if you're aware of the changes that have been made. That would be really helpful for us to see. So let me carry on here. Right, so what's changed? So there are 7 different awards available. I've put them on the screen there so that you can see them. So the Digital Schools Award, the kind of chunky one, the one that you're on the connector to be part of, they've split that into 2 awards. There's the primary award, and there's what they're calling the post-primary award, the secondary school award, and I guess beyond secondary. There's an ELC award that's coming. It's not on the website yet, but it's coming. So instead of us having that one DSAS award that covers everyone, they're splitting it by sector. So that's a change. The criteria for the awards is available, and you can see it on the website, and there are a few differences. So like I say, that's how we've mapped it across so that you can see what the differences are between the different awards. You submit your evidence against each aspect. That's the same. That hasn't changed. On the old website, that self-evaluation, you know how it gave you the statements and you tick the statement, and if you've used it before, there was a little green kind of slider bar and it went up and down, and when you got to 70% in a criteria, it would tick it and say you can apply, you're ready to submit for the award. They've taken that feature away. There are still evaluation statements, but only for the primary award. So this is maybe feeling like a lot. Remember, this is being recorded. We've got resources that'll help you as well. It is a change, but it's okay. Well, it's all right. I've had a good look at it, and it's actually okay. Everything that you're gathering already in terms of evidence, you'll still be able to use. There aren't changes there. It's a change to the wording. It's a change to the significance they're putting on certain elements. I'll show you what I mean. And you'll get, like I say, this mapping sheet that shows you all on a couple of pages. So just it's okay. Okay, so let's just go through it a wee bit at a time. And hopefully it'll begin to make a wee bit more sense. We're here to help you as well. And the thing for us is really and for me, the reason I've involved myself in this and I promote the idea of the Digital Schools Award to schools like your school, the reason I do that is, for me, it's a framework, it's a self-evaluation tool that you can use, whether or not you apply for the award and when you apply for the awards, up to you. the point of it is it gives us a way of talking about digital, a consistent way of talking about digital in Scotland, and an understanding of what good looks like or might look like that I think is helpful. That hasn't changed, right? They've changed a wee bit of the nitty gritty, but we can deal with that. It'll be okay. Right, so looking at what the process is, I wanted to just put this onto the screen. So they've streamlined the process a little bit. You still register in the same way. Then you do this self-evaluation piece of work. But what you're doing now is it's asking you to submit your evidence against each part of the criteria. So I'll show you that on the website in a minute. There's a bit where you upload your evidence to that particular part of the criteria. That is a wee bit of a change. So I'm interested in your thoughts around that and whether that's going to be okay, whether we need to look at that in a bit more detail. You still get allocated a validator. They still go in and look at your work and the evidence you've submitted and do that visit with you in the same way as was planned before. When you go in, you'll be able to see in this new portal that they've got, there are bits that you can change and add to, and there are bits that you can only see. And one of the bits that you can only see but you can't edit is like the validator's part of it. So they go in and validate you against each part of the criteria, and they can leave comments. So you're able to see that in the portal differently from what was there before. And then that mentor process is still the same as before, where once you get the award, you get put forward for it and you're able to be a mentor school and help others. So it's a wee bit of a streamlining of it. More of it's done in the portal than was done before. So that's, again, as I say, it's a wee bit of a variation on a theme. Right, so I wanted to go in and actually look at the site. So I'm going to escape from that. I'm going to stop sharing. Is that stop sharing, Brian? Have I done that?
It has, that's great.
Right, so let me just get the site up and then I'll pop it back up again so that we can see. Please put anything that's coming to your mind into the chat so that we can see how you're feeling about this as we're going along, and whether it's coming as a wee bit of a shock or whether you knew this change was coming. I'd be interested to know how you're feeling about it. Just getting the link up on the screen here.
So one of the questions is there a way to go back? Because mine is a green tick on the self-evaluation. Yeah,
Okay.
so we've had that Susan and I've had this conversation with Digital Schools.
Right, I'm just getting myself logged in here. Oh, right, let's try this again. Yeah, so we've had that exact conversation with them to see and give you access to what was there before. Sorry, you know that way we're under pressure to get your email address in and then your mind goes blank. Having one of them. Hold on. Right, let's try that. Right, so there we're in. So if I go back to you now and share my screen again. Get the right screen, Susan. Self-evaluation Digital Schools Award, there it is. Can you see that, Brian? Is that up now?
It's on its way. Yeah, there you go.
Right. So here's this new portal. So what happens now when you sign in the normal way and you log in with the same details as before, it'll force you to this new portal by default. However, to answer the question in the chat, we've got from Digital Schools Award the link that'll let you into the old site so that you can see what you'd given yourself, the ratings you'd given yourself and whatnot in the old site. It needs to get lifted over into this new one for you to apply. But you can get in and you'll be able to access it. So let me just show you briefly what's in here, because you'll be able to go in and have a look now using your normal details. So when you come into this choose award type before starting, this is where you'll see all those different ones. So there's those 7 different awards that I mentioned before. It includes the European, the Selfie Award, Digital Schools Award Europe. So if you're interested in that as a school, it lets you see, it's brought it all into one place. So you can understand, I suppose, why they've decided to do that. If I go in, I'll pick the one for primary just now. The one for post-primary is just a couple above it. It also includes the new endorsement award. So that's for schools that have already been awarded their Digital Schools Award. They can go back in and do the endorsement to sort of reaffirm that they're still using it in that same way. So I'll pop into this one. When you choose any of the categories, and you can choose any of the categories, It shows you the criteria on the screen like this. This bit up at the top, we're in dashboard just now. Users and teacher surveys don't apply to what we're doing. That's because they're piloting, Digital Schools Award are piloting something different, that's an award for individual teachers, Digital Educator Award. So that doesn't apply. These users, you can click into it, but it won't show you anything interesting. It'll just show you who's registered for it, and then this teacher survey will have nothing in it. We asked why that was there, and that's what they said. It's not applicable to schools that are applying for the award, so there's nothing in there to know about. When you click into the award of your choice, so this is the primary one, it'll show you the criteria. They're still called the same things. This one you can see, instead of digital learning and teaching, they've called it digital technologies to deliver the primary curriculum. So they've reworded it slightly. When I go into the post-primary one, they've added one called student digital competence. You can see digital learning and teaching still there, but they've added student digital competence. I've already gave myself a migraine mapping all this, so you can see it on one page, because that was what I needed in order to be able to cope. What's the criteria I'm used to? What looks different now? And how do I see the changes all in one place? So you'll get that as well, and you can sit and look at it in a bit more detail. Let me go back to the primary one just now. And if I go into leadership and vision, it opens up a section now that looks like this. So it gives you a little bit of spraffle at the top, like it did in the old one, about what that bit of the criteria means. Then it gives you evidence, what the evidence might look like. So it's examples of the evidence. You don't need to include them all. And then, like I mentioned to you, for primary only, it gives you these level statements. So attained, partly attained, not attained. So that mostly maps back to when you press the different sections and it gave you the percentages. Those level statements aren't in the post-primary award. So I'll go in and show you that in a second. All of them also have this new section, which is a link to key policies that might be of use. We didn't have a say or a hand in that. That's something that's been populated, but it might give you some links that are good. And then down at the bottom here, please provide evidence for leadership and vision. This is where you can put any supporting comments and you can upload your evidence, or you can put in the link if you had created your SWAY and you'd done it in that way, or however you happen to have done it. I know people will be asking, does this mean we've got to go in and put it in for every section? You can still collate all of your evidence into a SWAY or a slide or a Google site or whatever you want to do. And then you just put in the same link. You can put the same link into each section of the criteria. It will make you put something into each section of the criteria before you're able to submit. But it doesn't mean you've got to make like 5 different SWAYs or 5 different PowerPoints. You just put it in one, like we've talked about before, in whatever way is best for you and your school community, and then you put in the link. This section here, use the chat, put anything in, and Brian will tell me what it says if you've got questions about this as we're going along. This section here, like you see up there where I can type in there, I can put something in. This bit down here where it says validation, I'm trying to click and I can't do anything here. And I can't type where it says validate or comment. So that bit's like view only. But what I'm assuming we're then going to get when you go through this process is in that validate or comments box, it's then going to have, you know, it'll have comments from your validator put into that box. And then down at the bottom, you've been awarded it, which is one of the things that can happen. Your validator can award you for that criteria, but with a target. So if they gave you the Digital Schools Award, they might say, yes, we want to give you the award, but we'd like to see a little bit more in this criteria, in this section, and they'll give you a timeline, you know, and we'd like you to resubmit this part of it within 3 months. If they think that's the same as before, that isn't a change. It's just worded slightly differently. Or they might say it needs a review, or they might mark you as a mentor school because you've passed it. And then you can click. So see how that's grayed out, submit for validation. It won't let me do it till I've filled in all of these sections. So let me quickly go in and show you the post-primary, just as a point of difference. Let's look at this student digital competence, which is the different one. So same thing, gives you the bit at the top that has got what the sort of description of that criteria is. We've mapped that out for you. Then it's got examples of what the evidence might be. a link to policies, and then same thing at the bottom. It looks the same at the bottom. So that's the changes around the layout of it. And I guess we kind of are where we are with it. So that lets you see, and as I say, you can go in and you can log in and you'll be able to see that. So let me get the slides back up. Brian, is there anything pressing from what folk have got there that we should pick up? Has anyone mentioned anything? Or have we stunned everyone into silence?
Just about the kind of the old site and the people who've uploaded their stuff and how do they find that and take the things and things.
Right, I think that's on the next slide. So let's pop this back up and we'll see. So play from this slide. Is that back up, Brian?
Yeah.
Right, so here's the kind of spiel about it then. So as I said, you get redirected to the new website. You'll be automatically put into it. You should have got an email asking you to reset your password. If you haven't, just get in touch with Digital Schools Award and they'll send you the link so you can get into the new site. And the old site's been hidden. So this is this link. So Brian, can you drop that into the chat for people?
Yeah, I'm doing it just now.
Thank you. That's the old site. And if you put in your login details, it'll let you into the old one. The bad news is it won't let you submit in the old site anymore. You're going to have to submit via the new site. Hopefully that isn't too painful. I thought it would be good to still see the old site because it'll let you see, like for me, I'd want to see what I'd rated myself in each of the self-evaluations. So you can go in and take a note of that and then bring it over into the new site. If you're just about ready to hit the button and you've got all of your evidence already, you just go through the new one and you just add in your link to your evidence and submit it. Don't give yourself loads of extra work mapping it over. Digital Schools Award were quite clear about that. They don't want that. They can ask, your validator can ask if there's anything that they feel isn't there. You know, that we don't want, it shouldn't be extra work because, you know, this has been done. This isn't something that we've kind of had a part in putting together. So it can't be extra work for you because that wouldn't be fair. And I made that point to them. I've mentioned about, you'll still get a validator, same as before. The idea that they would award you with targets, you know, you would resubmit. And that isn't a change really. And I've mentioned at the bottom there, let me put that wee box out the way so I can see what I've said at the bottom there. What they're saying is the reason the change has been made is it's to make it more streamlined and that the red, amber, green hasn't been carried forward. When I asked why about that, you know, this sort of self-evaluation slider bar thing, what they said was the feedback from their validators was that schools like underrate themselves when they use the self-evaluation bit, and that would be a barrier, you know, that often when they see schools are way past the standard they're expecting, that they would award against the criteria, and schools have held back because they've been like, oh, at 70% is not enough, I need to get a bit more, I want to be at 100%. So they've taken it away. So that's the rationale behind it. And that's where it is. And as I say, we've mapped the old criteria across. Any other questions on this bit of it, please drop it into the chat. We'll move through now onto the next few sections. But if you've got questions or you want to speak to Brian or I about it, you can ask Digital Schools Award your questions as well directly. And I hope nobody is too worried about this. It's always annoying when the goalposts move, when you're halfway through something, but we're here to help you. And hopefully when you see it mapped out, you'll see it's actually not that big a change. The biggest change for me was getting my head around the portal, how they've changed the layout of it, as opposed to the actual content being too different. So we want to talk today about what is digital learning and teaching. Even with these changes to the criteria, the bones of this is still the same. So what does it actually mean when we're thinking about this aspect? It has to include instruction in digital tools because you have to know what it is. You have to know how to use the tools and able to use them for learning or for teaching. The idea of learning with and through digital is really important, and that needs to permeate the approach. So we're not just learning the nuts and bolts of how to use these tools. Yes, that's part of it, but we have to be able to use what we've learned to then open up the world and explore what it is that we really want to be talking about, the important part of that. Sorry, my slides have gummed up here. Let's see. There we go. the idea, that little quote of learning with and through digital technologies, it comes from realising the ambition, which is the National Practice Guidance for Early Years. That came out in 2020, January 2020 or February, March maybe, right before COVID hit. This guidance hit. If you don't work in early years, if you're not familiar with that sector, I really commend realising the ambition to you, regardless of what sector you work in, because of these ideas, these overarching ideas around the importance of learning through, it not being all about just that sort of passing over of knowledge. And that's really important. When we think about high quality learning and teaching, it's an active process. We've got to learn with and through. And the health warning around all of this is, if the digital use isn't enhancing, enriching, or extending the learning, it shouldn't be there. So that goes back to your role in terms of going looking for good practice. Sometimes we see digital being used, but if it's not enhancing, enriching, extending the learning, it shouldn't be there. So it's always just having that weather eye on what does high quality look like is quite important. Oh, remember this. Context is everything, right? So I can't see the chat because I'm presenting and Brian has abandoned us. So someone's just be brave and come on the mic if you don't mind talking to me. What colours do you see in the dress? If you've never seen this before, you're in for a treat. What colours do you see in the dress?
I only see white and gold. I don't understand how anyone can see a different colour. I know
White
you
and
can,
gold,
but I don't
okay,
understand
white
it.
and gold. Right, so who thinks that's a wind up? Someone else come on and tell me what colours they can see.
Right, I see blue and black.
Okay, so do I. So if you don't know what I'm on about here, I don't know where you've been, but you can go and Google this. It went completely viral a few years ago. So the story is, it was a mum getting ready for her daughter's wedding. She was looking for her mother of the bride outfit, and she took a picture of this dress in a changing room in a shop somewhere in Scotland, I think, and sent it over and sent it to a pal who said, "Oh, I really like it. I like the gold in it." And she texted back saying, "What are you talking about? Dress is black and blue. Don't be ridiculous. What do you mean gold?" And it then got put onto Reddit or Tumblr or one of these things, and it went viral because, due to some complete quirk of lighting in that changing cubicle in that shop on that day, whatever was going on with the phone camera, whatever has happened around the filtering, you know, and what happens when you put these things online or share the images, it's done something weird, and you can go and look it up. I'm sure there's a more scientific explanation than that, but round about 40% of the population see that dress as white and gold, and everyone else in blue. The dress is black and blue, right? That's the colour of the dress in reality. So white and golders, I'm sorry. It caused all sorts of fights in households. So there's the image. If you've not done it before, try it with your family and see what they can see. The reason I'm showing you this, other than for a little bit of light relief, is to make the point that the context, you need the context to make sense of the content. And this is a good example of that. If I'd just said it's blue and black, if you could see white and gold, you'd be thinking, what is she on about? She's gone crazy. But when you understand the context, hopefully it helps to make sense of the content. And that's really important when you're thinking about your teachers and you're going looking for good practice, and you go into a room and you see technology being used, and you might have a wee bit of a toe curling moment, and you might think, oh my goodness, why on earth are they doing that? Or you might think, wow, that's amazing. How on earth are they doing that? Understanding what their comfort levels are like will help to make their use of the tools make sense. So often where we see teachers whose comfort levels are a little lower, we see pupils that have either got a huge amount of autonomy and it's a little bit of a free-for-all in terms of what they're doing because the teacher hasn't got that comfort level to be able to be controlling it. Or we see it the other way around, where the pupils have got very little autonomy and it's very locked down, because the teacher just isn't quite too sure. So one of my best bits of advice I can give you on this aspect of the criteria is spend a bit of time thinking about what you know about that teacher before you go in, or that faculty or that department. Understanding where they are in their thinking around adoption of technology will help you to make sense of how they're using digital. That's how you'll get a real sense of how digital is being used to support learning and teaching, or is it just there as a wee bit of a filler or a wee bit of a bookmark. And really what we want to begin to see, where those comfort levels start to increase a little bit, is that The other way to think about context is we want our pupils to have like a sort of real life application. We want them to have purposeful contexts to be using the skills they're learning. So they're learning how to tap here and swipe there and drag there and use these tools, but are they also learning how to be able to go a little bit broader than that and how to be able to actually properly make sense of what they're seeing, have that be a purposeful context. And the way I try and think about that is, am I seeing creative producers of content or am I seeing passive consumers? You know, am I going in and actually they're sitting on a game or they're sitting on YouTube, or am I seeing them actually being active and being able to be creative? And I've mentioned to you before, sometimes it's okay to be a passive consumer. You know, when I'm sitting here tonight and I finally get logged off, and I hope you'll be the same, there won't be anybody more passive than me, you know, checking my social media and watching the telly and whatever else. But it can't all be that. We need a balance, and in the classroom, we want that focus to be around the creative production, you know, the context, the application of the skills. Keep using the chat for anything you want to say, even if it's about the dress. Right, so here's a wee bit more of the nitty-gritty again for us to take a look at. So what I've done here, and you'll get this in the document I've pulled out on this slide, and then on the next page, I've pulled onto one page what the criteria is under this new sort of slightly tweaked format that we've got. And I've done the same, and I've also pulled the evidence out. So this is the primary curriculum one on the screen here. And then those level statements that are only in the primary one, they've not put them in for post-primary one. I have asked why. I'm waiting to hear back on that. And secondary colleagues, if you're joining today or watching the recording, I'd be really interested in your feedback about how big a loss that is to not have those level statements. Because to me, it's just a quick, easy way to see where I might be. It's a kind of ready reckoner. So let's have a look at this then. Digital technologies, and this is the primary one. So using strategies to support interdisciplinary learning and teaching, fostering independent learning, assistive technology and how that's being used for pupils that need it, and then the cyber resilience, internet safety, digital wellbeing part of it. So that's all of those things were in the old criteria. They're just worded a wee bit differently now. And then the level statements you can see at the bottom are there. This is a post-primary criteria, so they've worded it slightly differently and for some reason done A, B, C, D, E, F, but it just breaks it down in a slightly different way. So what they're looking for post-primary or secondary is teachers routinely use digital technologies for planning, teaching, collaborating and evaluating learning. And they're looking for digital resources, there's that word creativity there again, fostering cyber resilience, internet safety, supporting students to use their own digital devices for learning. To me, that ties into that independent learning one. Depending on your local authority, that might or might not be applicable because some local authorities don't allow the use of bring your own device. Some do. The age-appropriate hardware, the assistive technologies, that's where that part is living in subsection D. The collaborative and independent learning, and then the real world learning, those real world contexts. Again, there's nothing in there that gave me a fright. There's nothing that I couldn't map back to the old criteria. They've just broken it down and worded it slightly differently. This slide here, I've taken this from the mapping document that I'll show you in a second or two. I think it's on the next slide. This is the evidence. So this is the evidence they're looking for at primary level and the evidence they're looking for post-primary. So what I was hoping you would do, and you can just drop this into the chat or you can come on to, oh, hold on, go back a bit. Come onto the slide and say, oh, why is it doing that? Hold on. Let me go back one. I should have a box here. Oh, it's not wanting to bring it up. There's a wee box that comes up here that's appears to have vanished. What I'm interested in looking at that evidence is your initial feelings about that. Is there anything that is freaking you out? Anything that you're thinking, oh, okay, that feels all right, that's comfortable. Anything that doesn't feel comfortable? If you could drop your thoughts of that into the chat, that would be really helpful, just for a minute or two. I'll just keep talking as you're doing that. because that would be really helpful for us to take back to Digital Schools Award, or to help you individually as well. Again, there wasn't anything that I found that wasn't in the previous criteria, and the important thing to always remember about evidence is you don't need to include examples of everything. This is just their list of what it might include. So things like teachers' plans, that's probably pretty standard. That they've put more of a focus, I feel, on this idea of a virtual learning environment and the idea of synchronous or asynchronous tools. Now that sounds big, but actually it just means, are your pupils and teachers using something like Google Classroom or Microsoft Teams to organise learning? You know, are resources made available to pupils electronically so they can refer back to them? That's what it's asking. Sometimes it's the unpicking of what they're asking is the bit that's key. And in that mapping tool, I've put the key questions in the middle, which is just that's my own thoughts that come to my mind. You might have your own key questions. How do I make sense of what it is you've actually asked me here? Any comments, anything you want to add, drop in to the chat so that we can gather that together. Couple of other things that jumped out at me here from this. Let me have a look and see. So in the post-primary one, for secondary colleagues, there's more of a focus on statements from pupils. So you can see there statements from or discussions with pupils detailing the way in which they use digital technology creatively in school. And then another couple down, statements from pupils detailing the way they use digital technology to help them learn more effectively. Examples of content created by pupils, examples of pupil work. I feel there's more of a focus in the post-primary one than was there before on that idea of pupil voice. What do pupils think? What's their engagement with this? And their understanding of how they're using the technology to support them. But I'm really interested in your thoughts. Does anyone want to come on mic? Because I can't see the chat just now. I will look at it afterwards, but in the interest of not faffing about more than is necessary, if there's anything anyone wants to comment on here or ask, does anyone want to just come on the microphone to ask, or are we quite okay to go on? I'll pause for 30 seconds, see if anyone wants to come on. It's okay if you don't. Okay, I'm going to take that as we're gonna move on. You'll get to see this and see it in a wee bit more detail, remember, and that'll hopefully help. So I put in another wee brain break here. Again, I can't see the chat right now. You can drop your answers in if you like, or if you're watching the recording, ask the person next to you. This was another one that went viral 18 months ago or something. If you're right-brained, you see a fish. If you're left-brained, you see a mermaid. Would anyone like to tell me what they can see?
Is he a donkey?
A donkey. Anyone see anything else?
A seal?
A seal. Yeah, I see a seal.
A seal as well.
Yep, seal.
Lots of seals. I can actually see the seal and the donkey. I cannot see a fish, and I cannot see a mermaid. So I don't know if that was why this one went viral. I just chucked that in again, just to give us a little bit of a breather, but also to make the point that we don't look at things the same way. And some ideas are there to be challenged. When you get into the guts, when you get right under the hood of this criteria, my experience of it myself and also from working with schools is this is the one that gets people talking the most, because we don't always look at learning and teaching in the same way, and we don't always see, we don't always agree, we're not always totally aligned on what effective learning and teaching looks like. And when you bring digital into that mix, it can really turn it up some more. So one of the things we talked about last time with those key questions and with the criteria in the document we gave you on the leadership aspects of it, we talked about how you might want to break this up and who's in your backup team and who's going to support you to gather evidence. Digital learning and teaching, this aspect of the criteria is perfect for this. So you can snip up the criteria on the sheet that we've given you, or do it in your own way. Put a different part of the criteria and the key questions to different departments, to different classes, ask them to talk about it at departmental meetings. Have a way of collating it. You know, I used to bribe people with Kit Kats on a Friday if they'd give me a little post-it note of feedback of what they thought effective learning and teaching with digital tools might look like. The best thing you can do with this aspect of the criteria is to try to get teachers talking about it, get them talking and get them to get their juices flowing around how are we using digital and how does that fit with our approaches to learning and teaching, and what have I learned, and where are my comfort levels, where are my pupils' comfort levels. Start to ask some of those questions when you're going looking for good practice. It's a really good one for spreading because everyone's doing learning and teaching. Everyone's got a say on learning and teaching. Everyone's got an opinion when it comes to learning and teaching. So it's a really good one to try to get your school community talking, and it's getting them talking that will lead you into that good quality self-evaluation. If it's all just living with you and you're ploughing through that, ploughing your furrow to get through the process of collating evidence, and then you get your school the award, that's great. And it's a huge achievement for you. But to really get the best out of this process, you need to broaden it. You need to get the teachers that wouldn't ever talk about this stuff talking about it. And sometimes this is a good way in. And you can use these slides. We'll share these slides with you. You can use them for a bit of banter to try and say, here's a way in. You know, we don't always need to look at this the same way. Let's get talking about it a little bit more. You're welcome to do that. Do it in whatever way works for you, but do it. Don't have it all just live with you. Oh, there's that slide that I couldn't find a minute ago. So there's the questions. What are the challenges with collecting the evidence? What aspects feel easier? What aspects feel harder? Who do you need to help you? So there's some planning questions for you to think about when you're looking at this evidence, because it can't all live with you, and you won't get the most out of it as a school community if it all lives with you. Can't stress that enough. Right, so we're moving on now. Let's have a wee think about resources, and then we'll bring this part to an end. I'll end the recording, and then I'll stay on if you've got anything you want to ask or we want to do that's a wee bit different. So resources that might help. So Education Scotland created these documents. Both of these are have been out for a wee while now. So you've got what digital learning might look like. You've got features of highly effective digital learning, teaching and assessment. Brian has led on the work around the sort of digital teacher toolkit resources that are all on the DigiLearn website as well. So there's lots of stuff there if you're looking for exemplars of what might it look like. So if I don't know, or if you're working with colleagues in a year group, you know, this is what's up there, early level, digital literacy, you can take some of these ideas to that team and say, how about this stuff? Are you using anything that, you know, are you doing any ideas? Are you doing things that look like this? What are you doing? What might that look like? To help you get a sense of how digital is being used across the school. And it broadens it out from you. It gives people examples. I quite like the what digital learning might look like, the ideas in there. If you've got staff coming to it cold, or if they're just have got that mind blank thing, that can be a good way of opening the discussion for them. So that stuff's all on the DigiLearn site. These are two resources that have really helped me. The first one I think I maybe mentioned last time. This is a book called Screenwise by a lady called Deborah Heitner. You can buy the book online, and the link there is to it says Empathy is the app. I'll make sure you've got all these links. That's a wee YouTube video. I think it's a TED talk she did. It's really good for helping you to begin to think about what do we really mean by digital. And why do we have to get the learning and teaching of digital right to prepare our young people for what's coming next? So she talks about working with children to come up with a new app. What's a problem you might want to solve with digital? And they come up with ideas about, you know, I wish there was an app that would turn off everyone's phone at dinner time so that people weren't on their phones when we're having a family dinner. I wish there was an app that would ask me, do you really want to send that message before I send it? I wish there was an app that would silence a friend that keeps messaging me or contacting me when I'm trying to do my homework. And she talks you through that process and what that might look like, and the kids come up with all these great ideas for problems that they might want to solve. And then she comes round to this idea of, do we need apps for these things? Could we decide we're going to put our phones away at dinner time? Could we decide that we're going to, you know, message the friend to say, I'm doing my homework, could you not message me right now? Could I self-regulate and not send the message before I send it? And that this is all tied to empathy. So there's loads of really good resources in there. If you are working with families and you're dealing with some of the fallout in school from things going wrong with digital outside of school, that's a great book. And I really recommend it to you, and you can recommend it to families as well if you feel it's as good as I feel it is. The other document I've linked in there is a piece of research that was done by the Five Rights Foundation. So their founder, or the founder of the Five Rights Foundation is a lady called Baroness Kidron. Now, you might have heard her name in the news this week because she has supported the call that's been made by the families of Molly Russell. Molly took her own life several years ago now after exploring a lot of self-harm content online. Her dad's been very vocal in the need for social media to be regulated for young people. And you might have seen that she has met, Molly's dad has met up recently with the mother of Brianna Ghey. Brianna was the young person that was murdered, and her murderers were convicted through the court case that's been in the media recently. And Brianna's mother and Molly's father are quite united in their belief that social media needs to be different and that it's impacting young people. So there's a huge focus on that in wider society just now. And Baroness Kidron has put her weight behind that in terms of the Five Rights Foundation and that need for regulation around social media. So you might think, what is she on about? We're talking about digital learning and teaching. We are, but you know, when young people reach you in the morning, they've swam to you through an ocean of everything else that's going on in their lives and what's going on in the wider society. Our classrooms aren't bubbles, much as we might like them to be. And digital is an inescapable part of the world that everyone lives in now. And we know it's impacting young people. So this piece of research, which is several years old now, is really useful because what they've done is they've looked at milestones for child development and they've mapped it to typical digital use. So what children's behaviour is typically like at different stages of development, what digital use looks like at that age and stage, and what the risks and challenges that brings are. That really helped me in my thinking when I was coming at the wider picture of, oh my goodness, how do we begin to plan? What does digital look like? What do our young people need to be equipped with to be able to not just survive in this digital world, but thrive in the digital world that they found themselves in? So 2 documents that are commended to you from me in particular, and as I say, that wee bit of recent context around the Five Rights Foundation and the work that's ongoing there. This is this mapping tool that I was telling you about. So I've popped in another link there to a book called From EdTech to PedTech. If you're on your EdTech social media, Twitter channels and whatever else, you'll have seen this doing the rounds. It was written by a lady called Dr. Fiona Aubrey-Smith. She did a bit of research in 8 primary schools in a MAT down in the south of England. And she's done this work, extrapolated it out and done this work around the idea that we need to move away from thinking about digital in its own right and being much clearer and much more effective about linking it to pedagogy and looking at how learning and teaching is impacted by the digital tools. It's well worth a read. If you haven't come across it, it's another one it's worth having a look at. And as I say, it's big news just now because it's just quite recently published. The other 2 pictures I've put on the screen there, in the middle one, sorry, it's a bit small. That's that mapping tool I was telling you about that I've made. It sounds fancier than it is when I call it a mapping tool. It's just a document, but I've put the old criteria in the first column, the new primary criteria in the middle, and the new secondary criteria at the end, so that you can see what that looks like on one page for digital learning and teaching. And then on the the portion, the right-hand side of your screen there's that support guide that we've done for you before for the leadership criteria, where it'll give you the criteria, and it's a new criteria that's in there, some key questions for you to think about, and then I've put what the evidence might look like. That's the one that I always think is quite good. You can just download it, cut it up, put different parts of it in different departments, put it up in the staff room, whatever you want, a wee kind of ready reckoner. So Brian was saying he hadn't got the link I'd sent him, so I'll sort that and I'll make sure he's got it, and he'll put that up onto the DigiLearn site so you can get those, you can download them, adapt them, do them, use them in whatever way feels like the right way for you. Right, so we'll take any questions in a wee second. And then on here is just a wee reminder, the resources and the recording will get added on, and Brian will send you a reminder email, so you've got that. The next session is on the 18th of March, which will be here before we know it. And we're going to talk about school culture that day. If you would like to have a wee chat, 15 minutes, if you just need a wee regroup, or if you need longer than that, it's fine. You can email me, more than happy to do that and find a time that works. And you can also email the lovely Brian if he can meet that need for you a wee bit better.